Next, let's discuss decentralized marketplaces, also known as DEXs. Many would consider decentralized exchanges to be some of the most important DeFi applications ever created. Decentralized exchanges are platforms that imitate the function of typical centralized exchanges. One of the biggest differences is that the back end of a DEX exists solely on a blockchain. A centralized exchange takes custody of your funds or your coins and requires a level of trust that the exchange will honor your transaction. DEXs do not take custody of any funds or coins, as trades are completed directly from user to user. So before going more into how DEXs work, let's talk about how centralized exchanges work. So with typical centralized exchanges, money is deposited into an account and is used to purchase cryptocurrency. When crypto is purchased and stored on a centralized exchange, you give up a sense of control of it. You can still trade, sell, or withdraw the currency, but you can't spend it directly on the blockchain. You do not own the private keys to crypto purchase stored on a centralized exchange. When you withdraw the crypto, you are essentially asking the exchange to authorize a transaction on your behalf. When trades are initiated, they do not occur on chain. The exchange distributes funds to users in its own database. And many centralized exchanges have streamlined their operations, which results in faster trades and ease of use for maybe unknowing users and users new to the space. Now, while many centralized exchanges are reputable with positive histories, there's always a level of risk involved. Exchanges can deny withdrawals at any moment for any reason, meaning that there could be times that you cannot send your crypto off the exchange. There's always the risk of exchanges shutting down without warning, which has happened in the past many years ago, or data breaches that could result in hackers draining exchange funds. This risk is mitigated by only using reputable exchanges that have proven themselves over time. That means looking into the history of exchanges, possibly choosing the exchanges that have already filed to become public companies rather than private companies with hidden histories and hidden transaction histories, and so on. Really doing your own research. So here's a visual example of the centralized exchange structure. So here's our centralized exchange in the center, where we have our CCE, cryptocurrency exchange. We see the CCE's bank account and the CCE's crypto wallet. So let's say client A puts in a deposit for maybe $1,000 and they want to use that money to buy crypto on the exchange. So essentially that money goes to the cryptocurrency exchange's bank account. And within client A's account that they have on the larger bank account, they could then purchase crypto that's held on the CCE's wallet. And we also see that here, where client B over here, they have Bitcoin on their own private wallet and they want to send it over to this cryptocurrency exchange. Essentially, that money coming in is not stored on their own personal wallet. It's stored on the cryptocurrency exchange's wallet. Now, this account has access to those funds that are allocated to it, but they don't necessarily control their funds when it's stored on someone else's wallet. We also see that with Bitcoin withdrawals. If client A is trying to withdraw their funds off a cryptocurrency exchange, they're essentially asking permission from the exchange to withdraw their allocated funds off the cryptocurrency exchange's wallet and send it to whatever address that they're choosing. we see the same thing with client B. So if client B has $10,000 in Bitcoin, they sell it into US dollars and they want to pull out that money. They want to cash out essentially. Well, now that money is held in the cryptocurrency exchange's bank account. So they have to essentially request transfer of their funds out of someone else's account. So there's a level of trust and really a level of ownership that users don't have when using centralized exchanges. So moving on to decentralized exchanges. How do they work? So DEXs are powered through the use of smart contracts, which is coding programmed into a blockchain that defines the terms of a transaction or terms of an agreement. Orders are executed and processed without requiring users to sacrifice custody of their funds at any point, unlike centralized exchanges. Most popular DEXs are centered around assets on a single blockchain, such as Ethereum, but there are cross-chain DEXs in development. Transactions are considered P2P or peer-to-peer and are considered direct without any intermediaries. Some DEXs utilize liquidity pools to provide trading pairs and liquidity for certain markets, thus removing the need for actual buyers and sellers when a transaction is requested. Now, one of the examples of a DEX using a liquidity pool to essentially facilitate trades is Uniswap. Uniswap is one of the largest exchanges, decentralized exchanges running on the Ethereum network. And here's a visual example of how this works. So let's say here's our trader and they want to swap token A and they want to receive token B. Maybe they want to swap out 10 Ethereum for 1 Bitcoin. Now they would input their 10 token A and there would be a fee depending on possibly gas fees at the time or transaction fees. That depends on the time of the day and also what blockchain. Right now Ethereum fees are very high before Ethereum 2.0, but other blockchains have DEXs that are much lower in fees. That really depends on DEX to DEX, blockchain to blockchain. Now, instead of having to have another person that wants to trade and wants to swap their 10 token A for token B, they can essentially swap it out with a pool, essentially a liquidity pool that holds reserves of certain tokens. So let's say in the Uniswap pool, there are 100 of token A, 10 of token B, and essentially the trader can input their 10 token A and take one of 10 token B. And the pool will constantly become larger over time due to the fee structure and also liquidity providers, which would then provide liquidity to the pool. Maybe the liquidity provider, maybe an investor in the pool wants to deposit 10 of token A and 1 of token B into the pool, and they're going to receive liquidity pool shares. This could be in the form of governance tokens such as the Uniswap token, and it could also be in the form, the rewards can also be in the form of interest rates on their investment as well. So let's talk about the benefits of DEXs. One of the big ones is that there is no KYC or AML. This stands for Know Your Customer and Anti-Money Laundering. This is a requirement that you must provide identity documentation and proof of address to centralized exchanges to access and use them. Now, this is a major privacy concern for users as security of these personal information databases comes into question. Right? We don't know what centralized exchanges are doing with our data, and this goes beyond centralized exchanges into other financial markets and financial institutions. We don't know what these companies are doing with our data, with our identities, with our addresses, and so on. DEXs, on the other hand, do not require your personal information in order to use them. There's also no counterparty risk. One of the main incentives to using a DEX is that users remain in control of their funds. There is no central database that could be at risk to data breaches. There's also access to unlisted assets. Centralized exchanges choose what tokens are available on their platforms. Now, if you're a trader on a centralized exchange, you're essentially subject to whatever the centralized exchange deems okay to list on their exchange. DEXs provide the opportunity to invest in unlisted assets without any barriers of entry. So let's talk about some drawbacks of DEXs. One of them being that there is no direct link to bank or debit cards. DEXs only work with cryptocurrencies and are not able to directly interact and exchange with fiat, meaning the US dollar or the euro. You must already have crypto to use a DEX. Convenience is another issue. DEXs are not as user-friendly and are not as intuitive to use compared to centralized exchanges. Centralized platforms display real-time trades and order books that are unaffected by block times. Customer service. If you forget your password on a centralized exchange, you can reset it pretty much any time. There's no customer service on a DEX. If you forget or lose your private keys, your money is lost and can't be retrieved. Trading volume and liquidity can also be another issue when using DEXs. So centralized exchanges typically have much more trading volume and liquidity than a decentralized exchange. Liquidity is a measurement of how easy you can buy or sell assets at a fair and practical price. In a liquid market, bids, which are buyer prices, and the asks, which are the seller prices, have little difference in price. And in a liquid market, there's a large difference between bids and ask prices. This can also be an issue with supply and demand, as DEXs are still fairly niche markets and there aren't as many people using them. Finally, the fees. Fees are not always higher when using a DEX, but they can raise during high network activity times and network congestion. Right now, using Uniswap or really any DEX on Ethereum is quite painful. The gas fees are very high, and that's something to keep in mind when trying to use a DEX for the time being. More on liquidity found here. So here's a visual example of liquidity. Essentially, is the ability to turn an asset into cash. So in terms of what we can deem a liquid asset, we can consider cash. Cash is pretty easily interchangeable. Possible money markets, bonds, stocks, ETFs. If you're holding an ETF or a stock, you can pretty much easily just hit sell and you'll be cashed out, and that money can be then transferred to your bank account. That's something that's easily transferable, easily sold, it's quickly sold, and it's done at a low cost for near market value. Illiquid assets are items that are hard to sell and hard to turn that asset into cash. This could include specific art, or maybe a very vintage wine collection, antiques, coin collections, and real estate. You have to find specific buyers that want to buy that specific item, whether that's a rare artwork or a $5 million mansion. And even then, it's not as easy to sell. The process can be time consuming. There can be fees and costs to doing so, and there's no guarantee that you're going to get the market value for your very rare artwork or your very rare coin collection. Last but not least, we will touch upon DeFi gaming in this final section. So decentralized technology has allowed for the creation of decentralized gaming models that challenge the gaming industry as we know it. Today, most online games follow a centralized model where all data is stored on a server that is fully controlled by the game developers. Since the database is owned by a single company, players don't have real ownership of their accounts and items. The downsides of the gaming industry include technical issues causing server malfunction, the threat of hackers infiltrating a central system with one point of entry, undeserved bannings of accounts and IP addresses, no transparency regarding in-game mechanics and item drop rates, the manipulation of in-game economy by the developers, and possibly even just the game shutting down and losers losing all their in-game data. Now, the benefits of decentralized gaming. This includes a sense of real ownership. Players can have permanent ownership and full control of their items in-game. This could be represented through NFTs, where items can be tradable to other users at any time. Streamlined payments, where blockchain technology has the power to reduce fees and improve transaction speed. It can also serve as an incentive to make payments directly to developers as opposed to going through multiple middlemen and publishers. Think about an example such as this. You want to buy a game from Blizzard. You want to buy the latest Blizzard game. Before you're doing that, possibly you have to buy through a certain launcher where that marketplace takes a cut. Then finally, the publisher takes a cut. And then maybe certain corporate individuals takes a cut before finally the developers see the fruits of their hard labor. There's also a higher level of transparency. So the use of blockchain tech allows for the creation of open source and transparent gaming servers. In-game mechanics are known to all users as they can always look it up on the network. Finally, there is the creation of decentralized marketplaces. These are games built upon the top of blockchain networks that can enable the creation of decentralized marketplaces. Players are able to buy, sell, and trade their in-game items directly from one to another. So let's talk about one of the most popular decentralized games out right now. This is Decentraland. It's possibly one of the most popular and successful decentralized video games. Decentraland is a blockchain-based virtual world powered by the Ethereum blockchain. Decentraland allows users to build their own games, tools, markets, and content all in a virtual world. It's essentially a decentralized version of Minecraft that functions in a virtual setting. Virtual land in Decentraland is permanently owned by members of the community, which allows them to control and prove ownership over their items. They can also choose to sell, trade, and buy virtual land and any other creations in Decentraland to other users. Land in Decentraland is coded as a non-fungible, transferable, scarce digital asset, also commonly referred to as an NFT. This technology, along with smart contracts, facilitates the trade of currency, goods, and services in the virtual setting. And here are some screenshots and visualizations of what the game looks like. Essentially, there's a variety of environments and scenes within the game, and essentially acts as a virtual world or a metaverse where you can create a life within a game. There are many events hosted. As we can see, this person's holding up a sign saying, hey, there's an event at 8 p.m. UTC. Once again, this is a global game. It's running on the Ethereum network. So people from around the world are participating from many different cultures, backgrounds, and using many different languages. And we see a variety of different buildings and architecture found throughout the game, and the game is still constantly in a state of development where new features are being added nearly every day.